Hello, I'm Debra, licensed marriage and family therapist, and I am choosing to do this on a weekly basis, Tuesdays and Thursdays. I have an introduction video um, in my YouTubes that describe, in my channel, that describes more of my intention here. And so, but in a nutshell, our world is going through so much. From pandemic to wars to a total change in policies. And I specialize in human development, family studies, marriage, parent and child relationship, and trauma are my specialties as well. And I wanted to find, create an outlet for us to all take some moments and pause and process, because we have a tendency in our world to glorify being busy, getting things done, and our nervous systems actually need time and space. Um, I recommend, there's so many things I recommend. I use a lot of Dr. Dan Siegel's work, and he has a platter that we all need. We all need time for focus time, connection time, downtime. And so I wanted to be able to show that there are sustainable ways to give our nervous system a break. Hence, I'm making it at lunchtime. I remember when I used to work for a Department of Human Services, and I had 5 pets, and I had a young child, and I would come home and just be doing all these things and checking the mail, feeding the pets, doing all these things when I was supposed to be having my lunch. And this is kind of when I first actually learned about mindfulness, which is what I introduce and walk through in these sessions. And mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way without judgment and with compassion. And you can see in my image slide one of my favorite quotes by Viktor Frankl, who was a survivor of concentration camps. I recommend reading any of his works. I think a man who could go through such trauma and can come to this level of awareness is amazing and inspiring. And so, if he can do it, we can. And that's another one of my lifelong missions, is to maximize human potential. Um, so, if you see that quote, it really highlights how. From stimulus to response, there's a space in between, and this is what I want to give everybody: is that space, so that we can actually um, align our actions with our intentions and our values, because our nervous systems, which I also love sharing and studying about, is so it's so simple yet at the same time complex, and a lot of reactions. So you might hear me make the distinction between reaction versus response. We're all going to have reactions. So reactions are instantaneously. We have a neuroception, this part in our brain that's scanning our environment 24/7, and it just takes an eighth of a second. That is a blink of an eye for your nervous system to perceive a threat. And with that perception of threat, you're going to activate a whole host of memories, lived experiences, stories that are going to play, fears. Usually we're black and white, rigid. There's a whole bunch that happens. And this happens, like I said, an eighth of a second. And feelings happen quicker than thoughts. So just imagine that, how fast that happens. And so it's so important to take a pause and to connect with your mind, your body, and spirit, so that you can choose a response that honors your values and your best intentions and moves you forward. And I can so much more I can say there, but so I'm just going to walk us through breathing, which is pretty much how I start every session. And if you continue to show up, I'm going to show there are many ways to breathe, and every body is different. You'll hear me say that a lot, and less is more. And that's why I'm trying, my intent is to keep these short, 15 minutes, to show that it actually doesn't take that much to give ourselves some space and peace and ease in our lives. And so starting, let's take a deep breath, breathing in. Long exhale through your mouth. And you're just noticing any thoughts, feelings, sensations that are coming up, and without judgment. And what I'm noticing, and I'm dialoguing, I'm role modeling what's coming up for me, because actually I had a whole other agenda that I thought about, planned to talk about. But then as soon as I got online, I started talking about something different, and now I'm going with it, going with the flow. And so I'm acknowledging that. And so I'm realizing that I shared a story about when I worked for Department of Human Services, um, working with the hardest cases I have ever had to work with, man. That's actually where I met Dr. Bruce Perry. So if you're familiar with his work, oh my gosh, amazing. He changed my life. Um, Anywho, that time when I would take lunch is when I first learned about mindfulness. And so as I'm breathing now, I'm remembering, wow, those first breaths when I said, you know what, I'm going to eat. It is time to eat. I need to eat. And I did this. I had also had gotten this natural magazine at the time that was walking through this mindfulness meditation activity, and it was noticing, when you're eating, notice the flavors, go through all your senses. What does it smell like? What does it taste like? What are the textures? Is it sweet, spicy? Are you noticing, what are you noticing? So, I'm hoping you're eating. I find a lot of us skip our meals, and I want to encourage that, you know, and we need to get our vital needs met. There's just no way we are going to be able to cope and then thrive on top of that, when we're not even getting our basic needs met. So I really hope that you are eating right now, or at the bare minimum, I'm glad you're taking some breaths in to get some oxygen. So again, when you're doing this breathing, just breathe in, exhale. And you may notice sensations at different parts of your body. If you are eating, you may notice some leftover flavors in your mouth, or if you had a drink. I can still taste my coffee a little bit, the bitterness. I'm also noticing my heart rate is going a little faster than I would like. I'm fighting off an infection and have been taking some antibiotics, and being a highly sensitive person, realizing that the antibiotics are affecting my nervous system in more ways, creating more anxiety in me. So I'm breathing in, send oxygen to all the parts in your mind, body, and spirit that might need it. And as I mentioned in my last video, and I'll repeat that when we take the pause, I think a lot of people, we keep going and going, like, because we don't want the negative to come up. We don't want the memories, the images, the stressors to come up. So we kind of keep going, distracting, thinking that's going to stop. But the problem is, it doesn't go away. The body keeps the score. And I gave the metaphor about, recharging the car, like, I mean, the phone and your car when it needs the oil change. Like, we see all those indicators, but we're not listening to the indicators in our own mind body, because we actually do need to process this stuff. And yet with the car, if it runs out of gas, it stops working. Yet for humans, it's a much more gradual process that happens. And it kind of just festers and eats at us and really wreaks havoc in our systems. We have so many systems that make up the human body, and it's just kind of, when you can't find calm, peace, and ease, then you can't get to rest and digest, and you can't find a homeostasis, and then all the amazingness of our human bodies can't function as well. And so, as you're breathing in, please notice your own signals of distress, tension, clenching. Like I said, my heart, I can feel it pumping a little bit more. Mind racing. Usually your mind is calling attention. Your mind and body are actually calling attention to the things that need attention. And when you exhale, you want to make that out breath longer than your in breath. So that is sending a message to your nervous system that you are indeed safe and in control. And if And as I mentioned, that we tend to not pause and take a break because we just think we gotta get this done, we gotta get this done, we gotta keep going. And then we don't want to be uncomfortable and sit with a thing. So if something is coming up that's uncomfortable, another strategy I like to teach and work through, and I'm also trained in EMDR, and to do EMDR, we always create resources, and a container is one of them. So anyone who works with me, I have you right off the bat create a container, and this is real or an imagined something that can hold all the stuff, the negative feelings, the events, the memories that you just don't quite have time to get to. So picture a container. I'll toss out examples. I've had a mason jar, backpacks, um, safes. I personally have my childhood camper is my container. I needed a big thing. And that's when I'm feeling overwhelmed and there's just too much going on. Um, that is where I put that. And I actually even have a container separate for my work. So I keep a different one um, to process my clients, and that's actually like a vortex in the universe that I send that has an umbilical cord attached to it. So there's really, you know, no limits to this. Just don't overthink it. Just think of a container, and you want to make sure it's safe, it's secure, that it closes. And so with mine, with my childhood camper, it's got the door. I can shut it. So if events in your life, media, news, there's a lot happening in our world. So imagine putting it in your container, whatever that is. I'm going to add not only is there a lot happening in our world, there's a lot happening in our own personal lives. I know everyone has something going on in their life that they're not talking about. And I really appreciate you making time to come and join me, and so that you can have a safe space to take care of yourself, to connect to yourself, because you are your best resource when you're connected to yourself and source. Your higher power, whatever you conceive that to be. There's no right or wrong in the space. Again, breathing in, exhaling long through your mouth, scanning from head to toe, noticing any thoughts, feelings, sensations, and put anything else in that container that you're not able to fully process. And I hope that you do make time to process that more thoroughly. But often in the middle of the day, we have lots of things to get done. So put it in your container. I want you to imagine closing the container and then putting that container somewhere that feels safe to you. And this also can be a magical place. It could be a cupboard. It could be under your bed. It could be your closet. It could be whatever feels good to you. And this container is there to serve you. So at any time throughout the day, weeks, you can open it up and put it in there, knowing that it's to serve you, and that when you have a safe place, whatever, it's your bestie, it's your family, it's your journaling, whatever it is, that you have that outlet, that then you'll open up that container in a time that you feel safe to do that. And again, there's just not enough support in our world to allow this space, and it's so fundamental to our well-being, not even for ourselves, but for all the relationships we're in, because we live in a system, and we can only be as good as the system. I mean, we're just feeding off of each other. It's bidirectional. So as we take care of ourselves, and everyone we interact with will be influenced and affected positively. And why, if the world and all those other systems we are in can also affect us. So it's a relationship. And although there's so much we cannot control, what we can learn to control is our response of how we're going to move forward. Thank you for listening. I encourage you to listen to my YouTube videos. I do positive reframes on many topics, especially on trauma and stress, as we are experiencing a lot of trauma. And we need safe places to express, process, and make sense of it so that we can heal and be our best selves. Take wonderful care.